today's demos, we're going to show how the SecuPi platform works with the Snowflake Cloud Data Warehouse. We're going to showcase two different use cases. The first one is data that's been stored on Snowflake on the clear, and SecuPi handles it at use and transform and manipulates the data while in use. The second one is data that has been encrypted before loaded into Snowflake. So it's encrypted at rest on Snowflake. Snowflake does not have the keys, and SecuPi platform decrypts it in use or de-tokenizes the tokenization. So first thing to know, this is the SecuPi platform real-time dashboard monitoring. It can use for show us what's going on, audit log and monitoring purposes. So first, let's make a very simple query from a toy dataset that I generated. I named it this table customers clear. If I run this query, so you can see everything on the clear here, ID, job, email, name, credit card, city, street, social security number, etc. Everything is generated. And the first thing to note here is if I refresh here, so we see an entry from a few seconds ago, and that's my query. It came from our gateway. The user is Jill, and that's indeed Jill. And her Snowflake role is analyst. That's the IP. The classification shows some of the predefined columns I predefined as special ones that would tag classification whenever anyone gets them as a result. You can zoom into this query and see the actual query, see that it came from Jill, see that the role is analyst. It's taken automatically from Snowflake, and we can see a sampling of some of the rows that Jill actually saw as a result of this request. Now, through the SecuPi platform, we can also configure different rules and data transformation. So in this screen, I can say that for the role analyst, for the data category PII that I predefined earlier, I can change the action. So rather than seeing everything on the clear, I can now ask it to see it masked. And I predefine the masking operation on the credit card and social security columns. So now if I make the same query, I get the credit card and the social security number masked with the 4 and 3 less digits on the clear, and that's part of my configuration. If we go now to the real-time dashboard, we can see once again the same query, and there was a rewrite event. The rewrite event actually tells us about the different columns, how the different columns were rewritten as a result of this request. If we see the sample, once again, we see the actual rows that were returned to Jill as a result of this query. And this is the web UX of Snowflake, but it works on virtually any client. So just for the sake of this demo, I fired up some BI tools and different querying tools. So here I have the Microsoft Power BI desktop. I made this toy report in which I have the data on the clear. The data source is customer's clear table connected using Jill. And we can see that I can play and see the different employees or customers based on department or city. So right now, if I refresh the data, since now the role Jill is no longer allowed to see everything on the clear but masked, the Power BI refreshes the information from the server, and now suddenly everything here is masked as well. And same goes for Tableau. Here I have the Tableau desktop. I can refresh the data source. Making the query. Now everything is masked. Well, not everything that I configured. And similarly, we have the dbeaver, which is less of a BI tool, but a querying tool. So if I refresh the table, everything turned suddenly into masked. And same goes for the SnowSQL, that Snowflake's command line interface. I'm connected as Jill. If I make the same query that I just made here, it works. So the same concept is applied to different clients, be them web-based clients or richer clients that helps with BI. The same rule, the same set of rules and logics and transformations apply across the different clients. If you go back to the platform, we should be able to see all the queries that were just made from the Power BI, the Tableau. If you go here, you can see the actual process of Tableau that made it and how Tableau asked, what query Tableau made. Similarly to dbeaver, and the SnowSQL is using the same gateway that the WebUX is using. And for each and every one of them, there's a rewrite event that shows how the columns were rewritten using our masking logic. So that's pretty neat. Let's maybe have another attempt and see how things are looked when they are encrypted. So the masking is a transformation that makes sense, for example, if not for analysts, for maybe customer support that need to see less digits of credit card or social security number for verification purposes. Analysts, on the other hand, may need to do different type of analytics on the data, but in many cases, they don't care for the actual values, but how the different entities interact with each other. So let's change to encrypted and save it once again. And once again, I pre-configured the encryption operation on the different columns. So right now, if I make the same query again, so now I see the data encrypted. So I did not apply the encryption or tokenization operation to all the columns, just the sensitive ones. So we can clearly see that the email has been encrypted, but it's not typical encryption. It's actually format preserving encryption, also known as vaultless tokenization. So the same format that has been used for email is kept. So we can see that character and the end of the email address, but it's actually encrypted. So that's the format preserving encryption. Same goes for name. I applied an ASCII format preserving encryption. For the credit card and the social security number, it may seem as if nothing has changed, but it's actually another format preserving encryption. So the only valid format are 4 digits dash, 4 digits, etc. And like what we see here, and it's been encrypted as well. So to recap, behind the scenes, what just happened, you can also see it on the dashboard. We made another query. And yeah, that's the one. I can see the tokenized or encrypted results here. And the rewrite event did not mask, but rather applied different encryptions I configured for the different columns. Everything happened on the fly, which means on Snowflake itself, the data sits on the clear. But as far as clients are concerned, every client that would go through SecuPi would see the encrypted version. Same goes for here. So if I make the same query, now it's the encrypted version and all the other tools. Even maybe more impressive than that, so let's say as an analyst, I'm allowed to see the encrypted values, but now I need to interact with them somehow. So I might want to do something like this, where email equals here, the one that I see. And I get the right answer. But if we think of it, Snowflake doesn't know this string literal at all. So behind the scenes, the SecuPi platform had to make additional work. So that's the query. The SecuPi platform actually had to figure out that Jill is an analyst. So she sees the encrypted version of these fields. And whenever she made a query that directly asked about email or any of the other columns that have been configured to be encrypted, so this query has been rewritten to this one. So that's the clear text email. That's what actually is sent to Snowflake. And the response from Snowflake got encrypted on the way as well. So all this work, encryption, decryption, happens on the SecuPi agents, which are in the memory space of the different applications, or in the case of the web UX, on the SecuPi gateway. The other use case that I wanted to demonstrate is actually the customers, the encrypted version of this table. So before this demo, I also encrypted the table using the same encryption that the platform supports. And I did it using a NiFi pipeline with a SecuPi processor that encrypts the data. And I uploaded it, loaded it into the table named customers encrypted. Now, it gets a little tricky to know what's really what, because this connection is going through SecuPi. So I made another tab just to serve us for the sake of being a ground truth. This connection does not go through SecuPi. It is directly going to Snowflake. So we can really see that the customers clear are the clear text version, whereas the customers encrypted are the encrypted version. So that's that. And this tab is only to check that we are really, that's really the type of information that Snowflake sees. So when we are dealing with the encrypted version, same set of rules apply. So if I configure the role analyst, right now it's on encrypted, and I'm going to query encrypted, then that's what I'm going to get. And we look at the real-time dashboard. That's our query from a few seconds ago. And no rewrite event was needed because it's encrypted on the source, on Snowflake, and it just returned the encrypted version for us. But now, if we configure and say that analysts are actually allowed to see the clear text version of the encryption and of the encrypted data, and save it, and run the same query, it takes a second until it updates. We actually see the clear text version now. So in this case, the Snowflake has only the encrypted version, no keys whatsoever. The keys are only stored on the SecuPi gateway, in this case. And while I was querying it, the data was rewritten, or actually decrypted or de-tokenized, and I got the clear text version. The last thing I wanted to show is since this is a demo app and there's little activity here, I'm going to switch to a different instance with more of a real life data. And we have a column, user analytics capabilities. We can see different users here. And each user is associated the data exfiltration risk based on the amount of data that he or she are requesting. And since we have this visibility to all the different queries, and in particular when sensitive data is being requested and the amount of sensitive data that's being fetched, we can profile and do a comparison for the user compared with himself along the time. So that would be the user, and we can see that across time, he may exfiltrate less or more data, and also a peer comparison with another peers using the same role. So that's also a capability that can alert when suspicious things happen, and it should require additional attention for certain analysts. We can also configure rules for the use case of logical deletion. I made this rule of right to be forgotten. I'm just going to enable it. And in order for customer to be forgotten, we can just add his ID or any identifier in a central place in the SecuPi platform, get it from external source, and then eliminate it across all the different clients and connections, be it administrators or analysts or whatever. So in this case, I'm just going to refresh the data. And the way I choose to implement it here is just to mask out some records. So we do see that some of these records exist because I chose not to change it such that it would mess with the number of actual records for analytics that use count, etc. But this information is not available whatsoever. If I request the clear text version or the encrypted version, I would see these lines, and same for all the other BI tools. If I refresh the data, these customers would just not be shown here. And these are based on a list that I pre-configured. And as I said, it could be external list to the SecuPi platform. It could be fed manually or via REST integration, or giving a certain table in the database. That's all for today.